You ever open your banking app, stare at the number, and feel this low-grade anxiety humming in your chest? Like, you make decent money, you're not reckless, you're not buying yachts, and yet somehow, at the end of every month, you're thinking, wait, where did it go? You tell yourself it was groceries, or inflation, or that one birthday dinner, or the car repair, or the trip you deserved, or life. But if I asked you right now, without checking your phone, how much you spent last month on food, subscriptions, eating out, Amazon, transportation, and random impulse purchases, could you tell me within $500? Probably not. And that's the problem, because most people think their financial issue is income. It's not. It's visibility. We have built this strange cultural belief that money management starts with budgeting, that the first step is restriction, cutting back, sacrificing, depriving yourself. That's backwards. Tracking is not restriction. Tracking is awareness, and awareness is power. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people mismanage their money without realizing it. If you're someone who feels like you should be further ahead financially, but can't quite explain why your bank account never reflects your effort, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing, if you don't track your money for 30 days, you are operating a business with zero accounting. And yes, you're a business. You generate revenue. You have expenses. You either produce profit or you slowly collapse. The average American household income is around $75K a year. That's roughly $6K a month before taxes. After taxes, depending on state, you might see $4.5K. Now let's say fixed expenses, rent or mortgage, insurance, utilities, minimum debt payments come to $3K. That leaves $1.5K. Most people assume that $1.5K is extra. It's not. It's leakage. Because without tracking, that $1.5K dissolves into $600 groceries, $400 eating out, $250 subscriptions, and random digital spending, $150 Amazon, $100 ride shares, and suddenly you're negative. And here's what's fascinating. If I ask someone how much they spend eating out, they'll say $200. The real number is $400. They're not lying. They genuinely don't know. Behavioral economists call this mental accounting distortion. We categorize spending emotionally, not numerically. That $18 lunch doesn't feel like $18. It feels like just today. But $18 times 20 work days? That's $360. Add 2 dinners out at $75 each. Now you're at $510. And we haven't even touched weekend brunch. This is how financial gravity works. You don't feel it, but it's always pulling. The Federal Reserve reports that nearly 37% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. That's not because they're irresponsible. It's because they're unaware. There's a massive difference. And here's where tracking for 30 days changes everything, because the moment you track, your brain shifts from autopilot to conscious control. Let me explain the psychology. Humans are wired for immediate reward. Loss aversion means we hate losing $100 more than we enjoy gaining $100. But here's the twist. We don't feel small losses in real time. They're abstract, digital, swipe, tap, gone. But when you manually track, when you physically write down or log every transaction, your brain registers the loss. It becomes real. It becomes weight, and weight changes behavior. Think about weightlifting. If you never step on a scale, you can convince yourself you're about the same. The scale doesn't shame you, it reveals you. Money works the same way. Now let's do the math. Scenario 1, you don't track for 5 years. Let's say you're leaking $800 a month without realizing it. That's $9.6K a year. Over 5 years, that's $48K. Now invest that $800 monthly instead, earning a modest 7% annually. After 5 years, you're around $57K. Over 20 years? That's about $420K. That's not extreme investing. That's not crypto. That's basic index fund math. According to historical S&P 500 averages, 7% inflation-adjusted return is reasonable long-term. So when someone says tracking doesn't matter, what they're really saying is $400K doesn't matter. Now you might be thinking, Tom, I don't waste $800 a month. Maybe not. Let's cut it in half. $400 a month. That's still $200K over 20 years. That's a paid off house in some parts of the country. That's financial breathing room. Here's where people get defensive. They say, I work hard. I deserve to enjoy my money. Of course you do. Tracking isn't about eliminating enjoyment. It's about aligning enjoyment with intention. Right now, most people are spending by accident, not by design. And there's a huge psychological difference. When you track for 30 days, you confront patterns. You notice you order food when you're stressed. You shop online when you're bored. You upgrade things when you feel behind socially. Status signaling is powerful. We buy to communicate, not to consume. That $70K car instead of the $35K car. That's not transportation. That's identity. Now let's quantify that decision. Car A, $35K, financed at 6% over 5 years. Payment roughly $676 per month. Total paid around $40.6K. Car B, $70K, same terms. Payment around $1.352K per month. Total paid around $81.2K. Difference monthly, about $676. Invest that $676 for 20 years at 7%. That's roughly $350K. You are literally driving $350K of future freedom. Tracking makes that visible. Without tracking, it feels like I can afford the payment. With tracking, it becomes, this car costs me early retirement. Do you see the shift? Common advice says just budget, but budgeting without tracking is fantasy planning. It's writing down what you hope happens. Tracking is observing what actually happens. There's a reason businesses don't start with projections. They start with accounting. Another myth, I'll track it once I make more money. No, if you can't manage $4K a month, you won't manage $8K. Lifestyle creep is undefeated. The World Bank has published data showing that as income rises globally, consumption rises almost proportionally. Savings rates don't automatically increase with income. Discipline doesn't scale automatically. It compounds only when practiced. Let's run another scenario. Two people both make $80K. Person A tracks for 30 days, identifies $600 of unnecessary spending, redirects $500 into investments, keeps $100 for guilt-free fun. Person B does nothing. After 10 years at 7%. Person A's $500 monthly investment becomes about $86K. Person B has $0. After 20 years, Person A has about $260K. Person B still has $0. Same income, different awareness. Now here's where it gets deeper. Tracking changes your relationship with time. Because money is stored time. Every $20 impulse purchase equals maybe 30 minutes of your working life after taxes. But we never frame it that way. When you track, you start converting dollars into hours. You start asking, was that worth 45 minutes of my life? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's embarrassingly no. This is where the shift happens. The first week of tracking feels annoying. The second week feels revealing. By week 3, it feels empowering. By week 4, you feel in control. Not restricted, in control. And control reduces anxiety. Financial stress isn't always about lack of money. It's about uncertainty. The IMF has repeatedly linked financial instability to psychological stress indicators across populations. Uncertainty elevates cortisol. Cortisol reduces long-term thinking. Reduced long-term thinking increases impulsive spending. It's a loop. Tracking interrupts the loop. Now let's talk about the invisible leaks, subscriptions. The average consumer underestimates subscription spending by about $100 to $200 per month. Streaming services, cloud storage, apps, gym memberships, software, forgotten trials. If you find $150 a month there and invest it at 7% for 30 years, that's roughly $170K from trimming digital clutter. This is why 30 days changes everything. It's long enough to capture patterns, short enough to commit. You don't need to track forever obsessively. You need 30 days of brutal honesty, no rounding, no guessing, exact numbers. Here's what happens psychologically when you see the total. Shock, then clarity, then strategy. Because once you see where $5K actually goes, you can reallocate. Let's say after tracking, your monthly breakdown looks like this. Housing, $2.2K, transportation, $900, food, $1K, entertainment, $600, subscriptions, $250, miscellaneous, $450, total, $5.4K, income after tax, $5.8K, savings, $400. That's the real number, not the number in your head. Now you can ask intelligent questions. Can housing be reduced in the next lease cycle? Can transportation drop by driving current car 3 more years? Can food spending be optimized by meal prep 2 days per week? Small adjustments compound. If you reduce spending by $500 monthly and invest it, you create margin. Margin creates options. Options create freedom, and freedom reduces stress. Another common piece of advice I can't stand is cut coffee. It's lazy advice. Coffee isn't the problem. Mindless behavior is the problem. If you track and realize coffee costs $120 monthly and you love it, keep it. Cut the thing you don't even remember buying. Tracking shows you what you value. It separates joy from noise. And here's the deeper layer. When you track for 30 days, you confront your identity. Are you someone who reacts or someone who directs? Money amplifies identity. If you're impulsive, more income amplifies impulsivity. If you're disciplined, more income accelerates wealth. According to Federal Reserve data, the median retirement savings for Americans in their 40s is far below what financial planners recommend. Not because people don't care about retirement, but because they never built the habit of awareness in their 20s and 30s. Compounding punishes delay. If you invest $500 a month starting at 25 until 65 at 7%, you end with around $1.2 million. Start at 35 instead, around $560K. 10 years cost you roughly $640K. Time is brutal. Tracking protects time. Now, what happens if you do nothing? Let's model it. You make $90K at 30. Income grows 3% annually. Spending grows 3% annually. Savings remain flat at 5% of income because that's what's left. You reach 60 with maybe $300K invested. Not catastrophic, but not freedom. Now alternative path. Same income. You track for 30 days at 30 years old. Identify $700 monthly excess. Invest $700 monthly from 30 to 60 at 7%. That's about $850K. Add employer match contributions and raises invested. You cross 1.2 million. Same person, different awareness point. This is why tracking is not about spreadsheets. It's about trajectory. It's about shifting the angle of your financial life by 5 degrees today so that 20 years from now you land somewhere completely different. Planes that leave New York 3 degrees off don't end up slightly off course. They land in a different state. Your money works the same way. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I've tried tracking before. I stopped. Of course you did, because you approached it emotionally. You treated it like a diet. Temporary, punishing, instead, treat it like data collection. You are running a 30-day financial audit. No judgment, just information. If you overspend, good. That's data. If you're surprised, good. That's awareness expanding. You don't shame yourself for stepping on a scale. You adjust your training. And here's something powerful. Once you see your true numbers, you start negotiating differently. You question insurance premiums. You refinance debt. You comparison shop. You ask for raises. Clarity increases confidence. Confidence increases income. This is the part nobody talks about. Tracking doesn't just reduce spending, it increases earning potential. Because you know your burn rate, you know your runway. If your monthly expenses are $4K and you have $24K saved, you have 6 months runway. That's power. That's negotiation leverage. Without tracking, you don't know your runway. You feel trapped even when you're not. And that psychological trap keeps people in jobs they hate. Now zoom out globally. The Bank for International Settlements has repeatedly warned about household debt levels rising relative to income in developed economies. When debt servicing ratios increase, households become vulnerable to rate hikes. If you don't track, you don't see creeping interest costs. A $5K credit card balance at 22% interest costs roughly $1.1K per year in interest alone if unpaid. That's nearly $100 per month evaporating. Tracking exposes that leak immediately, and once you see interest as an expense line item, not as an abstract balance, you attack it differently. Because interest is negative compounding, investing is positive compounding. Tracking lets you see which side of compounding you're on. Here's the perspective shift. Most people think financial freedom comes from a big break, a raise, an inheritance, a lucky investment. But financial freedom is usually the accumulation of dozens of small corrected behaviors identified through awareness. Tracking for 30 days is the doorway. It's not glamorous. It won't go viral, but it is the moment you stop drifting. Look, you don't need to become extreme. You don't need to cut every joy. You need clarity. Clarity leads to intentional spending. Intentional spending leads to higher savings rate. Higher savings rate shortens time to financial independence dramatically. If you save 10% of your income, it can take roughly 50 years to reach financial independence depending on returns. Save 25%, closer to 30 years. Save 40%, around 20 years. Savings rate matters more than return optimization, and you cannot meaningfully increase savings rate without knowing your true spending, which means tracking. 30 days, that's it. 30 days that determine the next 30 years. So here's what I want you to do. Start on the 1st of next month. Track every dollar. Income, expenses, cash, card, everything. At the end of 30 days, categorize it, then ask one question. Does this reflect the life I'm trying to build? If yes, keep it. If no, redirect it. That's the whole game, not deprivation, direction. Disciplined people win long term, not because they earn the most, but because they see clearly. Clarity compounds, awareness compounds, small course corrections compound. If you've never tracked before, this might feel uncomfortable. Good. Growth usually does. But discomfort for 30 days can buy you decades of confidence. And I want to know where you are right now. What's your monthly income? What do you think you spend? Be honest in the comments. Let's normalize transparency around money. If this gave you a different perspective, hit the like button so more people see it. And if you're serious about building long-term wealth instead of just chasing income, subscribe, because we're not here for hacks. We're here for leverage. 30 days, track it, then watch how everything changes. I'll see you in the next one.